Parker suffered a similar experience, and it was my father's responsibility to take him away, hiding him on the carpet in his Pontiac Parisian, and he stayed in a house in Ukehe for 3 weeks before Dr. Bara mustered enough people to lead him back to Tivland. And I found out then that he loved Anunichi. Now, Chief Awolowo too found expansion outside Western Nigeria extremely difficult. The MPC alliance with Chief Akintola in Western Nigeria was so violently resisted that it provided the excuse for military intervention in the governance of Nigeria. The 1963 constitution, which was based on a federal system with 3 regions in the beginning and later 4 regions, was fashioned to give reasonable autonomy to the regions for security, control of mineral and natural resources, and self-government. From 1954, when Macpherson Constitution was adopted, to 1966, when the military entered Nigeria's politics, Nigeria's federal structure, founded on autonomous regions, gave rise to unprecedented economic growth. Import substitution industries grew, educational institutions of international reputation festered, agriculture was promoted with tremendous zeal, and earned so much foreign exchange, which financed phenomenal growth. In northern Nigeria, groundnut pyramids, cotton and textile industries grew. Ahmadu Bello University was built. In my time, if you wanted to read architecture, the best faculty of architecture was in Ahmadu Bello University. Agriculture and animal husbandry thrived on a very large scale. In Western Nigeria, cocoa plantations blossomed. Rubber was marketed internationally. The earnings from these economic activities were wisely invested in free education at all levels, products of whom are professors retired and serving. First National Stadium, First National Television Station, and University of Ife. In Eastern Nigeria, earnings from palm produce led to the development of the first iron and steel industry in Black Africa, the second cement factory in Nigeria, the second beer brewery in Nigeria, a tire producing company, an indigenous poultry production unit, a soft drinks factory, and the University of Nigeria. In 1966, the military entered Nigerian politics with 2 bloody military coups. Following the January 1966 coup, the government of General Aguiyi Ironsi promulgated a unification decree number 34, centralizing governmental control and by implication reintroducing unitary government practiced by the British and used in administering the Nigerian armed forces. Ato insists that Ironsi's decree was purely intended to unify the military control of regional governments, as it did not tamper with the federal structure of government, as in the federal and regional structures and their powers. He contended that it was General Gowon who, after the July counter-coup, abrogated the regional structure and created 12 states and centralized government in Nigeria. This development, the assassinations that attended both coups, and the pogrom directed against Southeasterners in northern Nigeria led to serious constitutional crisis. The West was aggrieved not only about the structure of government, but also about the bypass of General Gundikwe, the most senior army officer, and the appointment of the head of state after Ironsi's murder. On the intervention of Ghana's General Ankara, the Nigerian military leaders met in Aburu, Ghana, and agreed on confederation, which essentially made the regions stronger than the federal government. Dr. Lex Ekweme, Nigeria's former vice president, in his book Wither Nigeria, describes that meeting in this way, and I quote, "At this time, the nation was in deep crisis and a breakup imminent. The military leadership agreed unanimously to a set of procedures in order to avert the impending disaster. These decisions were supposed to be passed on to the civil servants for implementation. Instead of proceeding accordingly, there was a, and I quote, meeting of permanent secretaries with members of the Federal Executive Council," end of quote, "to consider and comment on the Accra decisions of the meeting of the Supreme Military Council. Their comments included the following," and I quote, "It is considered that the establishment of a military headquarters with equal representation from the regions headed by a chief of staff amounts to a confederation," end of quote. Ekweme concludes that because the federal permanent secretaries did not find the unanimous agreement of military leaders on confederation palatable, they frustrated and aborted it, and Nigeria was plunged into a civil war. The war that broke out claimed more than 3.5 million lives, mostly from the southeast. After the war, the military authored 2 more constitutions, one in 1979 and another in 1998-99. The two military constitutions were finally approved by the Supreme Military Council. Under military rule, this organ was its highest legislative organ for the country. It was made up of senior military officers, the majority of who came from northern Nigeria. The last constitution of 1998-99, I was in government then. I was Minister of Information. I was one of the three ministers privileged to attend the Supreme Military Council. The others being the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, who came there by dint of his military rank. But when it came to the issue of constitution, all civilians were asked to go out. That constitution was not in fact promulgated until after the president had been sworn in 1999. That last constitution was the legal instrument that governed Nigeria's transition to democracy. It is still in use in Nigeria today. It was not subjected to a national referendum. It created 19 states out of old northern region, 6 states out of old western region, 2 states out of old midwestern region, and 9 states out of old eastern region. An agreement by a constitutional conference convened by General Sani Abacha, which divided Nigeria into 6 geopolitical zones, was never incorporated into legislation, even though it continues to be adopted for administrative purposes by government and the political parties. The creation of states and local governments in these 6 geopolitical areas did not respect any equitable parameter. Our present constitution is not of touch turners. The law faculty here will understand what I mean. It was not written by the people of Nigeria. It was not approved by a national referendum. In jurisprudence, its effectiveness will score a very low grade on account of its acceptability. Regrettably, it continues to hold sway and begins with a false proclamation, and I quote, "We the people of Nigeria." Our present constitution was written at a time of unprecedented increase in national revenue, following massive discovery of oil in Nigeria and its global reliance as a source of fuel for mechanical machines. It had at its centerpiece the distribution of national revenue and national offices using states and local governments as units for division. It constructed a federation in name, but a unitary government in practice, following the pattern enunciated in 1966 from the inception of the military administration. Competition and drive for production by the federating units was destroyed by that constitution. Every state and local government in Nigeria waited every month for proceeds from oil-generated revenue to be shared out to them. The federal government became enormously powerful, taking over mining rights, construction of interstate highways, major educational establishments, rail and water transportation, power and several infrastructural responsibilities previously undertaken by the regions. Competition for the control of the federal government became intense and corrupted our electoral system. Corruption became perverse in the federal government as the federal government became too big to be effectively policed by auditing and administrative regulations. If you look now, when the federal government has a road, you see no work for 10 years. But when a state government has a road, it is finished in 1 year. Isn't it so? Yes. As I speak to you today, Nigeria has a green economic outlook. Nigeria's economic external debt has grown from $10.3 billion in 2015 to $15 billion this year. A request which was approved yesterday, before I wrote this speech, for additional $5.5 billion borrowing plan by the National Assembly has increased our external debt now to $20 billion. Our domestic debt has also grown from 8.8 trillion naira in 2015 to 14 trillion naira in 2017. Domestic debt component of the 36 states rose from 1.69 trillion naira in 2015 to 2.9 trillion naira in June 2017. On the 7th of November 2017, Moody's Investors Service downgraded Nigerian sovereignty user rating to B2, citing the rationale as the likely unsuccessful efforts of the Nigerian authorities to increase their non-oil revenue and persistent key structural weaknesses. The federal government has on 2 occasions released bailout funds to enable states meet their recurrent expenditure requirements. Only about 9 states in Nigeria, namely Lagos, Kano, Enugu, Edo, Delta, Abia, Rivers, Anambra, and Kwara states have. This brings me to the question of what form Nigeria will assume under a restructured arrangement. and how this restructuring can be brought about. Two basic models have been canvassed for restructuring in Nigeria. A conservative model, canvassed by my friend Governor El-Rufai in Chatham House, aimed at maintaining the status quo, has been proposed to mean simply a shedding of some of the exclusive powers of the federal government, like issuing of mining leases, permission for construction of federal roads, and shedding of regulatory powers over investments in critical sectors of the economy like power. In my view, this model merely scratches the surface of the problem and avoids fundamental devolution of powers. The second model calls for a fundamental devolution of powers to states as federating units, and a lean federal government with exclusive powers for external defense, customs, immigration, foreign relations, and the federal legislature and judiciary to make and interpret laws in these exclusive areas. The second model proposes states as federating units with two different approaches. The first approach simply wants states as federating units and the federal government with limited powers. It wants the states to control a percentage of revenue accruing from their areas and contribute an agreed percentage of such revenue to the federal government and other states respectively. The second approach proposes the states as federating units with a region at each of the 6 geopolitical units, whose constitution will be agreed to and adopted by the states in the geopolitical region. The regions will have the power to make existing states or create new ones. There will be regional and state legislatures in the respective political entities. This approach proposes revenue sharing formula of 15% for the federal government, 35% for regional government, and 50% to the state governments. To achieve a national consensus on this subject requires a national discussion. Regrettably, the ruling party, the APC, which promised restructuring in its manifesto, after 2 years and 6 months in office, has just appointed a committee to define what sort of restructuring it wants for Nigerians. To make matters worse, none of the other political parties have come up with a clear-cut policy for achieving a consensus on this matter. The National Assembly itself is a reflection of deep ethnic divisions in the country, and the northern majority conferred on it by the military makes it highly unacceptable to southern Nigeria. Recent resolutions made by it on devolution of powers have not helped the situation. Happily, the Senate President has promised a revisit to the subject matter. In the recent past, self-determination groups have sprung up in Nigeria. This development is symptomatic of the widespread dissatisfaction of many Nigerians with our present political structure. The self-determination groups span over Nigeria. They include IPOB here, BASOP here, Yelicom in western Nigeria, Arewa Youths in the north, Niger Delta Republic in the south-south, and have been designated as terrorist organizations by the federal government. This development in relation to IPOB is unfortunate. Boko Haram is an armed organization which has attacked and occupied Nigerian territory, hoisted its flag and appointed local authority governments. It has abducted and abused Nigerian women, kidnapped and imprisoned many, and killed over 200,000 people. It is still involved in guerrilla warfare against Nigeria, and yet the federal government is negotiating with them. No member of Boko Haram captured by the military was put under trial until after my Chatham House speech in September this year. Members of the federal government are on record for condemning the previous government for brutal murder of Boko Haram members and condemning the retired Chief of Army Staff for zealous prosecution of the anti-terror campaign. Members of the sect who confess to a change of mind have been received along with their abducted female partners in the presidency and rehabilitated. The declaration of IPOB as a terrorist organization is, in my view, horrid, unfair, and not in conformity with the intendment of the law. Whereas I am completely in disagreement with some of the methods of IPOB, like its inappropriate and divisive broadcast, the uncontested evidence given by the Attorney General of Nigeria in an interlocutory action claiming that IPOB attempted or actually seized guns from law enforcement agents are, if proven, merely criminal offenses. They do not constitute enough evidence to meet international law definitions of a terrorist organization. Happily, the United States Embassy in Nigeria shares this conclusion and asserted that the United States government does not recognize IPOB as a terrorist organization. These same unarmed IPOB boys that have been stigmatized by the Nigerian government have had their members murdered in Asaba, in Nkpo, in Aba and Port Harcourt, simply for having public demonstrations without the federal government ordering a judicial inquiry. Instead, after I called for one, and Amnesty International provided evidence that 150 of them were killed, the Chief of Army Staff sent up an inquiry composed of 7 and retired members of the armed forces, thereby compromising the rules of natural justice, which prescribes that you cannot be a judge in your own court. The Igbos in Nigeria feel that the treatment of IPOB is unfair, discriminatory, and an overkill. They see the move as an attempt to encourage a profiling of Igbos in the international security arena. We know of other self-determination groups in Nigeria that are armed, have destroyed government and private sector installations, including oil wells, that government prefers to negotiate with rather than label them as terrorists. Fulani headsmen, otherwise called Fulani militants, have rapid farms in Middle Belt, southwest and southeastern Nigeria, killing several farmers in the process. In January 2016, they killed 500 farmers and their families in Agatu in Benue State. In my own Enugu State, they murdered 100 farmers in Okwabinumbo in April 2016. Photographs depicting them with automatic rifles trend the entire world social media. Yet not one of them is facing criminal charges. Nor is Operation Python Dance being conducted in areas where they ravage and kill. And the federal government describes them as criminals and not a terrorist organization, notwithstanding their classification by Global Terrorist Index as the first deadliest terrorist group in the world. See British Independence newspaper of 12 July 2006, which indicated that Fulani headsmen have killed. Thank you. His Excellency Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was an outstanding Nigerian statesman. He had passion for Nigeria and made tremendous sacrifices for our country, even at the expense of his goodwill. As a family, we the Nwodos enjoyed fraternal relationship with him and his family. As an individual, he mentored me. Having to speak here on his lecture series is for me most fulfilling. I sincerely hope that through the ideas we have exchanged today, a meaningful dialogue can commence that will rescue our country from imminent economic and political catastrophe. I thank you for your kind attention.
Can we give a resounding standing ovation to the President of Ohanaeze Ndigbo Worldwide, Chief Dr. Onyewu, for a very great lecture. May we be seated? It can't be any better than this.